Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to another of our webinar Wednesdays. Thank you for joining us. You hear the chimes, I think, in the background of the First Presbyterian Church across the street here at 17th and H in downtown Bakersfield. One of the reasons we used to start the webinar at 12:05 back in the day. But we're here for number 99. Got a great program for you. So let's get started. So here we are. Next week, we'll be back here with number 100. And I mentioned Mid-State Development. We'll have Keith Bryce as we look at number 100 of 100 consecutive weeks of live webinars on Wednesdays. So dating back to March 18th, the pandemic, we're going to talk about lending issues and lending issues moving forward as we start to hopefully recover from the pandemic and get back to a lot of normal issues going on with small businesses. And one of those is obtaining capital. And there's some more programs that keep popping up that Keith and I will talk about. Keith's been on probably about a dozen or more of these. He's been a special guest, so that'll be number 100 next week. So what is up today? February 2nd. Well, happy Groundhog Day. Apparently, Tawny Phil saw his shadow, and we have 6 more weeks of winter, which is, if it's 6 more weeks of winter like we're experiencing here in the San Joaquin Valley, a little chilly, but gee, we could sure use some of that rain, Phil. So happy Groundhog Day to everybody out there. A little tragic news. Apparently, there's quite a few of these groundhog festivities that go on. And the groundhog known as Milltown Mel passed away shortly before Groundhog Day today. And it was very popular in Milltown, New Jersey for the celebration that they have. Who knew they had 4 or 5 of these that go on? But really sad. And apparently in the wild, groundhogs live to be 3 or 4 years and 8 to 12 years in captivity. So condolences to Milltown Mill and his family. Hey, we have a good bit of recovery news that's been going on and some stuff that's very favorable. There was some information today out that talked about actually services are recovering now, whereas at the start of the pandemic, consumers spent so much of their funds on what were actually goods. And now services are starting to take over, particularly hospitality and travel. So with some more of those, more of that income with a strong labor market that we'll get into today, and also difficult to find employees that we'll get into today. But a little bit of good news that is suggesting that with services rebounding and a drop in goods, that might be good for our local economy. We will talk today about the Kern Micro Grant Program. We do have an official start date now of February 7th, which will be next Monday, and have some great speaker today, and Teresa Hitchcock, to tell you about it. And it was her office that actually applied for the money and received that. So she will tell us all about that today, and we'll continue to promote and work that program that will benefit 369 small businesses in Kern County. Also, we'll talk about some of the help that's on its way for the labor shortage that many of you businesses are facing and have been facing for a considerable amount of time. We had a webinar back on webinar number 90 about 9 weeks ago. We had Dr. Richard Gearhart in. He suggested a lot of the reasons why we have changes in our labor and our changes in our labor shortage that we have. So it's always good to go to our YouTube channel if you want to see any of our past webinars at CSUB SBDC. Our YouTube channel has almost all 100 webinars. Occasionally, there will be a technology glitch, like I forget to push the record button, and that has only happened once or twice. So go to the YouTube channel and look up old ones if you want to even learn more, because that was a fascinating webinar on a lot of things that were going on and a lot of the contributions to why there was such a labor shortage, and it is incredibly still going on. We'll look at the pandemic relief programs that are still open, and more will be opening. We're going to give you a quick look at some of the new programs in Mono County. And actually, why don't we do that now? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Mr. Jeff Simpson, who is the Economic Development the Economic Development Manager of the County of Mono. And Jeff can come in and talk about some of the programs that are new in Mono County. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you all today. Yes, we're launching a new program as of last week for businesses located in the unincorporated areas of Mono County. So if you own a business in the town of Mammoth Lakes or Inyo County or any other districts, will not be eligible for these funds, only available to businesses outside of the town of Mammoth Lakes. I'll bring up my screen real quick and we can walk through the program. We have two options depending on your need and also size of business. The first is just a $5,000 grant. It's available again to anyone outside of Mammoth Lakes, the unincorporated areas of Mono County, and it is on a first come, first served basis. The business must have 0 to 5 employees, and we put 0 down there. If you're structured as a sole prop and have no employees, you would still be eligible for this $5,000 grant. The key here is it has to be tied to help out low to moderate income employees. And so you see the annual income household for a household of 4 and a household of 1. If you can see my highlighted cursor there, those are the thresholds. So there has to be under those benchmarks in order to apply for this grant. These are HCD, Housing and Community Development, CV 1, 2, and 3 funds. And so again, everything with that program must be tied to low to moderate income employees. The other program we have is a $35,000 forgivable loan. Again, same parameters, located in unincorporated areas of Mono County. It is again open to first come, first serve businesses. The business must show economic impact, negative economic impact to COVID-19, and has to prove that through either tax documents or P&Ls. Again, you have to have at least 1 employee in the low to moderate income range, same thresholds. The loan is forgivable, so you'll have an agreement, an actual structured loan set up with Mono County. We will issue the funds, and then in a few months, we will go back, and as long as you kept that employee or hired a new employee in that low to moderate income level, that loan will be forgiven. And some people can do this as little as 4 weeks. But again, it is a full loan, and if you do not hire the employee or do not retain the employee, you will be on the hook for paying that loan back. We have hired a consultant here, Jeff Lucas with Community Development Services, to help us with this program. I'm happy to send out the application. It is quite comprehensive. You have to get a DUNS number. It asks about every type of financial situation you're currently in, so it is quite onerous to go through the application. And that's why we hired this consultant here. I'm happy to help walk you through it. I can send you the application, or you can call our consultant here, Jeff Lucas, to get started. And yeah, that's our 2 programs that we have here, Kelly. So if there's anyone on the webinar that is interested, you can give me a call here or shoot me an email. My contact information there at the bottom of the email. And I'll also put that in the chat just so it's there as well.
Hey, great. Good programs. It is a lift though, working with CDBG programs, and since they are geared for those individuals that are the low to income moderate individuals. So hats off to Mono County for doing that lift. And I've met and worked with Jeff Lucas in the past, great consultant, knows his stuff, and hopefully we can get some money out to some Mono County businesses this time.
Yes, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, well, moving along, we're also today we're going to take your questions at the conclusion of the webinar, and we're going to jump into a poll. So let's do our poll now. And the poll is about the current staffing shortages that so many businesses are facing. So let's jump into the first question that we have. Is your business currently experiencing a staffing shortage? You're either a significant shortage, a moderate staffing shortage, a mild staffing shortage. You're not having any shortage, or it does not apply. So if you do not have any employees, obviously it would not apply, but Are you experiencing a significant, a moderate, a mild, or no shortage at all? We'll give you a little bit of time to vote on that and jump in. We have about 47% of our audience in at this point. So thank you for participating. We'll give you another moment or two. Is your business currently experiencing a staffing shortage? And is it significant, moderate, mild, you have no shortage, or it does not apply? Okay, so I have about 59, 67% of you in. Okay, last chance, and we're going to end the poll right there at 67% of you that are participating. And what we see is we see that for the majority, a third of you, it does not apply. And that's probably because you're here for the California micro grant. You don't have employees. But for the other 2/3 of you, what you're seeing is you're seeing that it is a mild shortage or no shortage, and just a significant shortage, 14%, moderate shortage, 11%. So that's good news, because that's a dramatically improved number than before. And if we look at this, because this is a poll question that was actually offered by the National Federation of Independent Business, the NFIB, and whereas they had 34% had mild, 26% moderate, and 10% significant. So I think that we're a little better off than the national poll on that one. So thank you for participating. And along that same line is our second poll question. And that one is going to be, let's launch number 2. And that is going to be, is your staffing shortage better or worse than it was 3 months ago? Now, of course, you have, does not apply down there. You have, I didn't have a shortage 3 months ago. It's about the same, or it's better, or it's worse. So is your staffing shortage better, worse, about the same? You didn't have a staffing shortage 3 months ago, or it does not apply. And look at you go. 56% of you are already in on today's second poll question. And so 62% now. Again, better, worse, about the same. Didn't have a shortage. Is your shortage of employees better or worse? Okay, let's end the poll. With 69% of you voting and responding, what we'll do is share the results, and we see that about a third still does not apply. That comes in consistently, but about 27% feel it's about the same. It's a little bit better, 11%. It's a little bit worse, 16%, but 27% about the same. And when you look at it on the national level, it's fairly close to that as well. So good to compare our local audience with the national level. And we'll do one more question, and this will be for those that the last one did not apply for, and maybe others as well. Ask the question about the California Relief Grant. Now, the California Relief Grant was the program that we had talked about since December 30th, 2020. And it was the one that you went through lindustry.com to actually apply. So simple yes, no question, or you weren't eligible. Did you receive funding from the California Relief Grant? So that could be a yes, it could be a no, or it could be that you were not eligible. And there were several eligibility criteria that you ran into. So did you receive funding from the California Relief Grant? And just 3 simple choices, yes, no, or not eligible. And we're going to, with 60% of the poll, close this thing in just a matter of moments. So last chance. Okay, let's end the poll and share the results. And 41% of you no, did not receive funding from the California Relief Grant. 29% of you yes, and 29% were not eligible. So, and the reason I asked this question is because that is a criteria of going after the micro grant program. If you receive the California Relief Grant from Lindustry, that is one of the eligibility requirements. It does not make you eligible for the micro grant that we're going to talk about in a few moments. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for that. And what we'll do is we will close up the polls and move along. Okay, so kind of a quick update on some of the key relief programs that are going on and continue to go on is we see that the employee retention credit is open, and it's open retroactively. So it goes back to potentially the fourth quarter of 2020. In 2021, it ended on 9/30. The city of Bakersfield's Restart Loan to Grant program, and another little grant program they have, it is open. Who you're going to want to contact there is Access Plus Capital or the Kern Women's Business Center. Contact either of those two entities for the city of Bakersfield programs. Also, the Kern County Micro Grant Program, it's going to be opening on February 7th. We'll have more details in a few minutes. I believe that is open now. I put a question mark, but I think Jeff Simpson let us know that it is open. And so the Mono County Grant and Forgivable Loan programs are open. We talked a little bit or a lot last week about the California Dream Fund. We'll be talking about it in the weeks to come, but it's going to be opening soon. And it offers grants to new businesses that go through several aspects of training. Again, that program is $35 million statewide, which is not going to be enough money. And it is really, I'm really hopeful it's kind of like the California Relief Grant Program where they added several rounds to it. If we recall, there was round 1 and all the way up to like round 7 or 8 as more program funds were added from the state of California. So a little tight funding on that program right now, but we'll be letting you know more as the information continues to become available. There's also the Small Business Venture Fund. I'll mention that in just a few minutes, PPP forgiveness. A little bit on EIDL. The EIDL loan, as you know, is closed. Targeted EIDL advance is going to be closing on February 15th for those under reconsideration. So if you have an EIDL targeted advance out there that you applied before December 31st, and you had to be in certain census tracts of lower income individuals in order to be able to apply for that. So it was by census tract, and SBA invited a lot of people, and they missed some people, obviously, because, you know, can't get everybody. If you were actually denied originally, you can seek reconsideration through February 15th. So, and that's the EIDL update, right, was right there. So, you know, they're no longer accepting the COVID, but they're processing COVID EIDL increases and reconsiderations as funding permits. So the EIDL program is still going. If you need more money from an EIDL that you already had, you can still go through that process and ask for an increase. If you were denied, which a lot of people are still going through the reconsideration process, those are both still open. And apparently they have plenty of funds at this time. But again, really the new information, the new news is that targeted EIDL will stop on February 15th. So now you're down to less than 2 weeks if you have that open. And if you have been trying to go through the EIDL advance, the targeted advance, and you are seeking to actually get that overturned, you're going to need to do so by the 15th of February. So you will want to go into your portal, your SBA portal for the EIDL program. Of course, EIDL is an acronym for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or you're going to want to call the hotline for the EIDL, and oftentimes that'll be in your chat. So we'll have that information there. Also, SBA continues to process the COVID EIDL increases, as we had mentioned, and as we said, there are plenty of funds. So if you need PPP forgiveness, you know, we have the vast majority of people that are out there have received PPP forgiveness for their PPP loans for 2020. A little bit, maybe 10 or 15% of the individuals from 2021 are still outstanding. And what you can do with that is you can actually go through that process and complete your forgiveness. Remember, it is not a forgivable loan until you go through the forgiveness process. So important to note. Also, if you go through the forgiveness process and you run into issues and maybe you disagree with either your lender or the SBA's assessment on the amount that is forgivable, There is a process, an appeals process that you can go through. We'll talk about that in greater detail later on, or you can email us at the SBDC and we will assist you in going through that particular process. So the reconsideration for the EIDL loan, there was kind of that process and what you went through and the forgiveness. Let's talk a little bit about this particular program. We mentioned it a little bit. It's still we're still getting bits and pieces of information. We do realize what it is, and what it is basically about $1.1 billion coming to the state of California. They're going to use half of it essentially for two purposes. For the Economic Development Bank, which is the iBank, the Small Business Finance Center. I think we had the finance center manager on a few months ago, and we'll probably bring Megan back if we can get her back on after this becomes available, and more information about how they're going to use this $1 billion. So we do know that about $500 million is going to go to the iBank. Half of it's going to go to the California Pollution Control Authority, where they do a couple of different loan programs out of the Pollution Control Financing Authority. One of them is called the CalCap program. There's a program around in the early 2010s, and they also do a collateral support program. So these are two programs we'll probably get into with Keith in much greater detail next week, but know that they're coming, and the landscape is changing for small business financing, going through for those businesses that are expanding and wanting to move up and on. So that's it, the State Small Business Credit Initiative. It actually was in the stimulus program from the Obama administration back in 2000. I believe it came out in 2011. And so this is kind of a new program, not a new program. It is just a refunded program. So we've had these around before, but if you go down to that last bullet, that's really what we need to impart. And we need to talk about that last bullet of being its intent. The major goal of this program is deploying capital to socially and economic disadvantaged individuals and very small businesses. So more on that next week as we kind of move on. The thing that really is going to be interesting, it also carves out $200 million for venture capital programs at iBank. And here are the 4 areas to where they want to establish. This is all I've been able to find on this now. So there's really not much more on this, but it's going to become available in the next, I would assume the next month or two at the latest. But it's going to provide funding for underrepresented venture capital managers. So I would assume that that means, those historically underrepresented individuals that are a wide range of individuals and those are going to be the managers. So those are going to be probably the fund managers of those, but they're also going to serve the individuals, the underserved individuals and business owners, and geographic areas that are socially, economically disadvantaged or receive limited venture capital funding. And that last one, I have no idea what climate equity and climate justice is, but I look forward to learning. Did mention a little on the California Dream Fund program. We'll be talking about that as it goes on. But there is a component on there that if you want to compete for these funds, these $35 million, that you will need to complete a sponsored program from the state of California. Sorry, Teresa, jumped the gun there. So there's a mandated training program that you're going to need to complete. You're going to need to get technical assistance from the SBDC or another provider, and also complete a business plan to receive grants of $5,000 or $10,000. Okay, let's bring in Teresa Hitchcock, who is the Assistant County Administrative Officer for the County of Kern, also manages America's Job Center, the Employment Training Resource, and heads up the Workforce Development Board for Kern, Inyo, and Mono counties, and is responsible for the oversight of a diverse and talented team, I might add, of 130 employees from entry-level to mid-management. For a while, Teresa was also serving as the interim airport manager for Kern County Airport Department. And she is, of course, a proud alumna of California California State University, Bakersfield. And in 2014 was our Schools of Business and Public Administration, was our School of Public Administration Outstanding Alumna, to which I recall her looking at the list of previous awardees and saying, wow, that's an impressive list. I remember that night. That's an impressive list, and she was correct. So, Teresa, I'm going to bring you in now, and thank you for joining us, and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me on, Kelly. I do have a more updated picture, by the way. So that picture is pretty out of date at this point. So I should probably get that to you.
Just one more thing to do, huh?
Exactly.
Well,
So,
welcome. And we're here to talk about a couple of things today. It's great to have you on. Teresa, it's not her first time on Webinar Wednesday, going back a few years. You've been on quite a few times, including last June when we talked about a lot of the programs. So why don't we start with some of the programs that America's Job Center offers to employers that are out there and that are looking.
yeah, so that's a good thing to jump into. So I know a lot of people are interested in this micro grant program that we're rolling out next Monday, but we do have other things to offer for small employers as well. So if you're a small employer who's looking to expand your business and you have, only a couple of employees and you want to bring on another employee, but until they get up to speed and are really producing for you, that's going to be a cost to your business. We can offer OJT training, which is on the job training contracts, and we'll offset 50% of the cost for a new employee while they're getting trained by you in order to be fully productive at your business. So it's a really great program for folks who are trying to scale up a little bit, and it does offset a lot of their costs. So it's a great opportunity for them to bring people into their business and train them and get them fully productive before they're paying a full salary. We also have work experience programs. So if you're a business and you would like to mentor someone, we have a lot of work experience programs. And these are folks who may have never worked before. I know it's hard to believe, but there are some folks in our community, for whatever reason, they haven't been engaged in the world of work. And so they may need a little bit more assistance and training, but oftentimes we find that we place people on work experience contracts, and the employers are so thrilled with their progress that they end up hiring them full time. So it's a great opportunity to get someone's wages fully offset. You're not obligated to hire a work experience participant, but again, oftentimes we find that employers have invested time and effort into these folks, and they turn out to be great employees, and so they hire them full time as well. And then you talked a little bit about entrepreneurship and resources for entrepreneurs. I wanted to let folks know that we have a partnership with Bitwise Industries that we're operating an entrepreneurial program. We have our first cohort going through right now. And what they do is they really train you on all of the skills and abilities that you need in order to run a successful business. But including the technology, because as we know, technology is a huge component of any business today. If you don't have e-commerce, if you don't have a website, if you don't have those platforms, it's difficult to be successful. So that's another program that's available to some of our folks who are interested in starting a business.
So how would people contact America's Job Center if they want to take advantage of some of these great programs?
So there's a number of ways. So they can go online. You can actually do our orientation. You can fill out your paperwork, whatever you need to do online. So there's an online avenue for those folks who would prefer that, or by simply calling 325-HIRE. And it's, again, it's a very simple phone call, and let them know what you're looking for, and they will connect you with the appropriate staff in order to get you started.
It's also so amazing when we talk to some of our clients at the SBDC. It's amazing how many people really don't understand all of the various programs that go on at Employer Training Resource and America's Job Center.
I think we're a little bit eclectic because we serve I think most people know us for the training side of it, where we're helping folks receive training through a number of different training partners. We have over 250 training programs that are available at no cost to folks in the community. So I think that's the side that most people know us for, but we also have business supports as well. So for small businesses especially, we understand that they need more assistance, obviously, because they're just trying to get up and running. And so we try to connect them with any resources that they might need in order to make their business successful. And on that note, the county is actually going to be launching a web page with all the resources that businesses may need in order to start their business, from how to get a business license, where do I look for capital, where do I look for planning if I'm building a building, what do I need to do in order to do that? Just all those things that when you're starting a business, there's a lot to it. And we recognize that there's a lot of different steps and a lot of sometimes barriers to starting a business. And we're trying to perhaps make the process a little bit easier.
Great. So again, that's 661-325-HIRE
Correct.
to jump into any of those programs.
Or America's Job Center of Kern.
Okay, great. Well, let's jump into the California Relief Grant. We're going to share the screen with the app. Let's start with the application.
Why don't we start with eligibility, Kelly, just to go through the eligibility a little bit, just so folks kind of have that in the back of their mind when we start going through the application process.
Okay.
That's the, we have a 1 page, it might be 2 pages, honestly. I don't know.
Well, I did mention, I did use the poll for one of the eligibility issues. If you have received the California Relief Grant through lendistry.com, then you're not eligible to actually go for the micro grant program. So I will start off with the first eligibility issue if there's any you want to take. And I went right to the bottom. I went right to number 6 on our list there. So, or number 6 on the second list.
So I guess the eligibility criteria are on the application too. We have a nice flyer about the program, but so number 1, you have to have been operational prior to December 31st, 2019. The reason for that is that this is part of the pandemic relief program from the federal government that flowed through the state. And then also you have to be currently active and operating or have a clear plan to reopen when the state permits reopening. So if your business, and I don't think there are too many that are still closed because of the pandemic, but there may be, I'm not sure. So if you have been closed because of the pandemic and you're looking at reopening, you need to have a plan for how you're reopening and when. And then, of course, was the micro business significantly impacted by COVID-19? We know that most businesses were. There were a lot of shutdowns, especially in restaurant, any of our personal services industries like hairdressers, nail salons, all of those. Oops, we lost our screen.
We did.
Let me see if I can pull up my list of.
Well, it's going to be back. So one thing while you're doing that, what I'll look at, because see, I'm cheating. I have the application in front of me.
Well, I have it here too. I'm going to do a little cheat as well.
So until our share comes back on the application form,
so the next one is less than $50,000 in receipts. So this is for truly small businesses, and those are revenues in the 2019 taxable year, and then also fewer than 5 full-time equivalent employees and fewer than 5 full-time equivalent employees in the 2019 and 20 taxable years, and then also a physical presence in the state or headquarters in the state. So you have to be located, and I'm going to say, it says in the state, but this funding was given to Kern County. So I'm going to say probably in the county is a limiting factor for our funding.
Yes. So, I think it's going to be a great program. One thing that I get asked a lot in this webinar is 50,000 is the wage limit, or the actual revenue limit for 2019. So if you're over 50,000, obviously you can't apply. But if you're under, even if you only were in business for 1 month, apparently the business can go ahead and apply, even though they were only on 1 month.
Yes, and I would imagine a lot of those businesses that just opened in the latter half of 2019 probably had particularly um, high impacts from COVID, because as you know, when you're first starting a business, it takes a lot of capital to get it up and running, and it's a difficult time period for any business owner. So I would highly encourage you, if you started a business right before COVID happened, that you would try to apply. And I think, I know Maureen had the other application up, and well, before we go there, there's a number of partners for this grant. So if you're interested in it, you can apply through any one of the partnering agencies. And so if you look on the right-hand side, you can see that CapK is a partner. Of course, Kelly and the fantastic SBDC is a partner that you can access this funding through. And then Kern Economic Development Foundation, and of course, the Women's Business Center as well. So any one of those organizations should be able to get you an application and help walk you through the process. I know we had a lot of discussion about if they were able to assist businesses in applying, and of course, they can answer any questions or help you as much as they possibly can in order to make sure that you're able to submit a complete application. And I don't know, Kelly, if you want to talk about what supports you guys will be offering for businesses applying through your agency or not, but
Absolutely. One thing that our team has talked about with this particular program, so if you want to apply through the SBDC, we will have you, if you're not already, signed up as a client, and we will meet with you because we want to not only assist you with the application process, but we want to let you know of the other resources or other things happening in your business that we might be able to assist with. And one of those might be to leverage the $2,500 used as a down payment in another loan program. In the coming weeks, we're going to be bringing on some of the other program entities that are out there. Some of our partners, such as Access Plus Capital, who have a program that for $5,000 or $10,000, and a lot of these programs have requirements for a down payment. This can count as your down payment. So if your need, because we really want to look at your need also. If your need is bigger than the $25,000 and you can handle the debt that you're borrowing, then we want to assist you in trying to even leverage that for more money or even grow your money further or your business further. So that's one of the things that we will do. So we're looking forward to it.
Which is fantastic. And I think that was the hope for this funding, is that not only would some of these businesses receive a little bit of money to help them with rent or supplies or whatever they need in order to get their business back to pre-pandemic levels, but they would also come into contact with other organizations that may have additional resources to make their business successful. So we're really excited about the opportunity that this grant's going to provide for our small business community.
Absolutely. So then there's a number of other questions that I guess are kind of eligibility type questions as well. So if we can go to the application now, we had the 6, program eligibility questions that we went through, and now are some other issues that we have to go through in order to make sure that we follow the state guidelines. So number one, and unfortunately, I know a number of you have asked questions on this already, but is the micro business a nonprofit? And unfortunately, you cannot be a nonprofit in this particular program. It's for profit only. So if we scroll down just a little further to that next 6, you'll see that as being number 1. If you're a nonprofit, unfortunately, you're unable to apply here.
So, and we did not set this criteria. I just want to let everyone know that we did not set the criteria. This criteria was actually set by the state in this particular grant that we received. And I do want to stress that as well, that these are grants. There's no requirement to pay them back. If you're eligible and you receive the $2,500 to help support your business, you don't have to go through a forgiveness process or anything else for the funding. But as Kelly mentioned, nonprofits are not eligible, and nor are businesses that are primarily engaged in political or lobbying activities. So neither one of them are eligible. But some of the other questions that we're asking is about business lending, such as a bank, finance, or factoring company. What's interesting is that these are for such small businesses that I can't imagine that we would see a lender or a bank or a factoring company. I don't know, Kelly, you can weigh in on that, but I don't think that that's probably even an issue. And then, of course, because it is federal dollars flowing through the state, you do have some grant assurances that they'll be required to meet. That's why they want to know about the restriction of patronage for any reason other than capacity, because you do need to be kind of an equal opportunity business, that you're not restricting based on any type of bias criteria, people's access to your business. So then also, does the owner have greater than 10% of the equity interest in it, and who meets one or more of the following criteria? And so there's a number of other questions that will be asked on the application. Not all of them are exclusionary, but just, you know, understand that some of this is because it's federal requirements. These are not local requirements. We were told that we had to follow their requirements on this program, and we will do that in order to ensure that we don't have any disallowed costs, but we do want to make sure that as many of our businesses are eligible as possible.
Yeah, and it's important to note as we move on to page 2 of the application process, it's important to note that those are consistent with SBA lending too, since they are, as Teresa mentioned, federal dollars that roll through. Every one of those last statutes are associated, except for if you received the California relief grant through Lendistry. The other ones are all consistent with other types of business lending that's out there. So that brings us to page 2, Teresa.
So Kelly, I'm also seeing some questions in the chat. So one of the questions, are there any programs available for businesses that have been operational after 2019? And I believe you were talking about the DREAM program earlier. They apologize for coming on a little bit late, but I believe you were talking about a DREAM program that's coming up for folks who are looking at starting a business, or
Yeah, unfortunately, with most of these programs being pandemic relief to benefit businesses that were up and going when the pandemic struck, there's a couple of programs. It will be the California Dream Fund. It might work for individuals in this capacity. The other one was one of the first ones I mentioned, being the actual ERC, the Employee Retention Credit. And that's a credit that can be retroactive through the IRS. So if you had employees that you were able to retain, even though your business started after the pandemic began, that one actually will work as well for newer businesses. But we expect some of those newer programs that we still haven't got guidance on to be more supportive, and some of the other ones that are coming on from other entities, the CDFIs, to be out there. I feel that most of those, other than the California Dream Fund, will be actually debt programs that will require repayment, but we'll know more once we have rules on the California Dream Fund program.
So as Kelly mentioned, we're on to the second page of the application. We did try to make the application as brief as possible, given that we had to include a number of questions that were required by the state. So it is only a 2-page application though, so it's not that onerous. And some things that you will be required to provide are a government issued photo identification, state, domestic, foreign, and documentation that includes a local business permit or license, a bank statement or a tax return, a trade account, or a third-party verification. So there's a couple of, there's a few things to show that you were, number one, who you are, and that you have been in business since 2019, and that your receipts are less than the $50,000. That's really all we're verifying. The grant funds, you need to specify what you're going to be utilizing them for, whether it's equipment, investment in working capital, application for renewal of a local permit, which could be to operate as a sidewalk vendor. It could be, there's a number of permits that are required for a number of different businesses. Payment of business debt accrued due to the pandemic. So if you had to buy special equipment in order to keep in operation, like a lot of restaurants invested in a ton of different equipment in order to stay operational. And then any other cost resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic and related health and safety restrictions or business interruptions or closures. Then the other thing that we are focusing on is we are really trying to support women and minority businesses, veterans, disabled business owners, undocumented, and then individuals living in low wealth or rural areas. So we're also really trying to hit our rural areas, which oftentimes get left out by a lot of programs. So if you're a business in a rural area, we would really like to see you apply for this funding. And low wealth communities, there's a definition there, which is equal to or less than 115% of the statewide average per capita, which a lot of our county actually falls into.
Yeah, the low wealth community, that's a great definition there. And so much of Kern County falls under this category already, so that will help as well. One of the things that we didn't mention, Teresa, is that each of us 4 partners in this program are going to be targeting a rural area outside of the city of Bakersfield. For example, the SBDC will be targeting and doing a lot of marketing and outreach in the communities of the Kern River Valley and in Ridgecrest. So, you know, my car knows how to get to Ridgecrest already, so that won't be a problem for us.
Yes, so I don't know the territories for each of the partners exactly. I believe the Women's Business Center is doing North Kern. You guys are doing kind of that East Kern side, and then KEDC and Cap K are kind of splitting up the valley floor, I think. So, but you can contact any partner and get an application. They have areas for outreach, but again, if you are familiar with one of the partners, you've worked with them in the past, please feel free to reach out to them. I know Kelly has a number of clients that may be eligible, and we of course would want them to work with an organization that they're familiar with. So don't hesitate to reach out to someone that you have worked with in the past. It's really helpful, I know, to have those types of relationships, especially when you're applying for something like this. We have someone asking, how is the less than 50,000 eligibility determined? And that is the 2019 tax document. So if you were in business in 2019, you should have filed a tax return, and that should show the gross receipts for the business at that time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go through the chat box and see what's in here. And hello to everybody who extended a nice greeting to us. Can you explain more about what you mean when you say that the program is part of the CSUB School of Business and Public Administration? Well, CSUB, California State University, Bakersfield, has 4 schools, and one is the School of Business and Public Administration. And we are a program of that institution. We work with students that actually that come in and work as interns. We work with staff and faculty at the School of Business. My boss is the dean right now, interim dean John Stark. So we are a outreach component of the School of Business and Public Administration. So that's basically why I bring that up. So we consider ourselves very proud runners and part of the School of Business and Public Administration. So I hope I clarified that. Let's see what else is in here. We see Jeff Simpson's contact information is on the chat. So you need to contact Jeff. There's some other resources that our producer Maureen usually contributes to the chat, and that is the EIDL phone number, the 800 number, the call center that we had you reference if you're still having some issues with them, to continue maybe to try to get that cleared up. There's some other resources that are in there. We've got Teresa's phone number in there with the 661-325-HIRE, and to contact America's Job Center, or ETR. Okay, so we're getting to some questions. Are there any programs available that came in? Okay, I think we answered that one as far as 19, came after 19. Talked about a few of those. They're limited. We're hoping to see more this year. It's funny, and we'll talk about this more next week. I didn't really want to confuse it with everything else going on this week, but there is also talk about more stimulus money coming out. And it's actually originating with the Senate Committee for Entrepreneurship and Small Business. Unfortunately, that's my entertainment these days. And so I listen to some of their committee meetings and hearings. And so there's talk about more stimulus programs coming, and maybe that will benefit some of those post-2019 businesses that have already started. So on the Dream Fund, we'll have more once the regulations roll out of the Office of the Small Business Advocate of the state of California. So we'll have more information for you as we know it. Next question is, how is the less than 50,000 eligibility determined? And Teresa got that one. Tax returns. I love those tax returns. That's what everybody seems to like these days is tax returns. So you're a little faster in the chat than I am today. So it looks like SierraWave.net put out something on the Dream Fund, and I can tell you the Dream Fund still has a lot of information that still has not been determined after getting off a call on it earlier today. Funding available for nonprofits. There were a number of funding that were available for nonprofits. The Kern Recovers was an excellent program for nonprofits and PPP, but those have since successful programs that have closed. So right now, I can't think of one off the top of my head. There will likely, if the pandemic continues and nonprofits remain vulnerable as they were when the pandemic struck, I would assume that there would be more then. But right now, I can't think of any that are up and going.
So I would just like to add that nonprofits are eligible to be work sites for our work experience folks. If you're operating a nonprofit that does take people in order to operate, let us know, and we would love to use your organization as a work experience site for some of our participants. And it's a win-win. They get work experience and you get some helping hands.
Great. Well, Teresa, do you have anything else you'd like to add on the California Relief Grant Program or anything else? I know we're excited. We're looking forward to it. We've been chomping at the bit for this February 7th to come. I know you can contact us at the SBDC. We will be sending you an application if you are wanting to apply, and also have you sign up as a client and meet with one of our consultants free of charge, of course, in order to figure out the best way to use it for your business. So Teresa.
So Kelly, that's a very good point. I would encourage everyone to reach out to any of our partnering agencies for any of the services that they might be providing for small businesses. Of course, SBDC is a fantastic resource for small businesses in general. And then Women's Business Center also offers some similar services. So there's a lot out there for you. I know sometimes folks are hesitant to reach out because, we're the government, we're here to help, but that's really, truly, these programs are not that governmental, and they are very helpful for small businesses. I also put our America's Job Center of Kern website in the chat for anyone who would like to go online and see other services that we have available for you. Or if you just have, friends or relatives who are looking for work or need some upskilling, we're happy to help with that as well. So all of that's available, and it's all at no cost. So we encourage you to take advantage of it.
Great programs. I'm a proud member of the Workforce Investment Board and Workforce Development Board. Can't change the name too many times for me. So, and great programs, and proud of the work that is being done by the Employers Training Resource, America's Job Center. So Teresa, thank you for joining us. Those are all great informational programs and great information to have out there. So in the coming weeks, we will give you an updated progress on how the Kern micro grant program is working and what is working good about it, and some of the things we might have to repair as we go, because that's the way these things work. And we will give you an update. And again, remember, it is first come, first served, limited to the first 369. Since, if you've been on this webinar before, I like to speculate, at least in advice on this webinar. And my speculation is I think it'll take a little bit of time. So you do have some time to get through this, but I would reach out to one of the partnering agencies and get the process going. In the next few weeks, we will have more information on the California Dream Fund as it becomes available. Also on the $1 billion going to state in the various loan programs and potentially some venture funds there, that we can get as many of those dollars out here to our Kern County small businesses and also those in Inyo and Mono too. So next week, webinar number 100, we'll be talking again about a lot of the funding programs that we're seeing right now and anticipating. But other than that, I think we're done. Any last words, Teresa?
No, we do have someone asking for what are the numbers to the partnering agencies for the Kern microgrants. I don't know if there's a way for Maureen to stick those contact information in there. I know that we had the websites up. Well, if you just pull up that graphic, maybe again, that has the websites listed, that would probably be helpful.
Yes. And again, those three entities, other entities, are the Kern Economic Development Foundation. So KEDF, you can Google and find their phone number also. Also, CAPK is the acronym for the Community Action Partnership of Kern. Great nonprofit doing great work here in Kern County, and also the Kern Women's Business Center. So the quick way to get the number on those would be to Google them. So
it's very fast, a few seconds.
So we're out of time though. So thank you again so much, Teresa. It's great having you here. Wrapping up number 99. And we will send this information out with our resources, a copy of this recording, as we are known to do toward the end of the week or maybe toward the weekend. So you'll get a good list of these resources and those if you happen to wait a couple of days. So Teresa, always a pleasure. Great having you on. And as we look one last look at the entities, there you go right there. I would do a screen save right there. And there you go. Okay.
Fantastic.
Thanks again, Teresa. We'll see everybody next week.
Appreciate it.
Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you for number 100.